This is for Louisiana State Senate District 14 seat. The election's coming up next 2 weeks from now, February 15th. So it's pretty close. So the things we're going to be going through are going to be very important. I want you to pay attention. I want you to feel free, if you have any questions, to write it down. As representatives, we'll save a moment at the end for you to go ahead and ask the questions that you want. At this time, I'm going to ask both candidates to please just open up with a brief statement about the job, why you're here for the job, why you think you could be the best representative for the job, and just give me a brief closing one, and then I'm going to get into the exact questions. We're going to go down to that order. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Anderson.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming out for this microwave campaign. My name is Quentin Anthony Anderson. I am a candidate for the Louisiana State Senate. The reason why I'm running is because I believe that any representative role in our democracy is one of the most important roles that you can have, and it's one of the most selfless ones. In our democracy, it's important for our leaders to know that you're not pursuing your own self-interest. You're not doing this for personal ambition. You're doing this because we live in a republic. You represent the interests of constituents. You have to put yourself aside, and you have to fight for what's best for the people. And whether that's at the local, state, or federal level, I think that it's one of the most important jobs in our democracy. And I think, unfortunately, for too long, especially in this community, we've been underrepresented in some of these roles. We've often elected folks who often serve more as vessels for other interests than being rooted in the communities that they actually serve. And it reflects itself in the advocacy that we get at the state capitol. So I'm running because I want to be your friend in a high place. That's what this role is. Your friend when the doors are closed and the interests of your family, your community, yourself are at stake. It's that person who's going to fight boldly and unapologetically for you. And I'm asking for your vote because I think I can be that person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Selders.
Hey, how y'all doing? I appreciate y'all's time because, you can't get that back. I'm Larry Selders. I'm currently the state representative. I represent District 67. Like Dr. Bell said earlier, I grew up in the area, the community. My mom went to Capitol, so this place has a very special place in my heart. Here I have my sons, LJ and Luke. My wife had surgery today, so they're hanging out with their dad. And, and that's a task, right? But for a living, I'm a social worker. I provide mental health therapy for folks here, and also have an agency in New Iberia. And I think, this is an interesting place to be in right now, and interesting stuff we're talking about, because this is the EBR Parish Prison Reform Coalition. And some of the things I've done and have passed and has been signed by the governor. So one of the bills I've had was to increase credits for earned income time. So let's say you get a bachelor's or a master's degree while you're in prison, you get credit for good time. Those are the bills that I authored. I also created a medical advisory committee for the Department of Correction, so that could deal with the health of the folks in the DOC. Those are things I've done. Also with corrections, I've also created some mental health discharge planning. So once you get discharged from DOC, they have to do discharge planning. So what happens, people don't understand the mental health that goes on, and sometimes you leave prison worse than you came in. It's a lot of trauma that goes on in those prisons. And so previously to this legislation that I authored, it was certain things that they wasn't addressing. And so they'll send you home, they'll just give you a bag of medicine, but they wasn't connecting you with resources. And so what Act 214 did was now when you're getting discharged, they're planning you and they're connecting you to out resources. And they're doing, they're supposed to be doing, let me say that, with the legislation that was passed, they're doing evaluations. So now, once you go in, you may have, you may be fine, but when you leave, you may have some kind of PTSD, you may have some kind of trauma. So now they're doing psych evaluations upon discharge in DOC. So now they can say, hey, you're not the same person you were when you went in. So that's some legislation that I passed. And some other stuff that didn't pass was, I was trying to get folks with mental health disorders off death row. And that'll be something else that we're going to visit, after this Senate race. But I'll still be in the House regardless of how it goes. And I also often say, this is not my seat. I'm currently serving as the representative. This seat has become available, and it's open to anyone and everyone that wants to run for this seat. But I am running for this seat. It's an open seat, and I'm honored to have the privilege to run for this seat. And I do ask for your votes and your support and your prayers while I finish this race.
I want to thank both of you gentlemen. What we're going to do now, or we're going to begin a rapid round of questions. I'm going to remind the candidates that there's 5 questions I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask for either 1 or 2 word answers.
Okay.
Please keep it brief. I want to be respectful, Michael, of everyone's time that's here. First question, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Selders. The people of this district must show up at work if they expect to be paid. Do you commit to attend the legislative sessions 90%, at least 90% of the time, and to report back to the district about bills of importance?
Absolutely. I think that's necessary. I think a lot of times we do a lot of work in the legislature, and I think, I can say for myself, we don't do a good job of letting the people know what's going on. A lot of people don't even know what kind of legislation I've authored and passed. And I tell people, I can't be my biggest cheerleader, but I encourage people to come there and follow it. This district is huge. We do a lot of things, we carry a lot of water. But I don't mind when anytime I'm called, I come. But I do have to be more intentional about having, and we did do it, we always do post legislative sessions, but sometimes it may not be in the best locations to everybody. We try to pick, I think we did one last year at BRCC, we tried to find a location, but I just probably have to do small little groups in different parts of the community. I think I'm definitely commit to that.
Thank you, Mr. Selders. Mr. Anderson, you want me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. No, absolutely. I commit to hosting town halls throughout the legislative session. When I ran for Congress, there were 10 parishes, so I said I'd do at least 10 a year. Well, there aren't 10 parishes here, but there are multiple neighborhoods, and I commit to doing town halls in all of those neighborhoods throughout the legislative session, also so that it's not overwhelming for people. If I try to come to you after a full legislative session, most folks are laymen. What I want to do is I want to make it very regular. I want to be accessible. I want to break it down for you so that also you all give me cover when I have to take difficult votes. If you know where I'm coming from and I've sort of walked you through the process, then you all don't get concerned when you all see a vote and it doesn't seem like it makes sense. You guys have been along for the ride. So, yes, I commit to that.
Okay. All right, my next question will be, and I'm going to flip it back and forth. I'm starting with you this time, Mr. Anderson. The last incumbent, as we know in this position, chose to run for another office or accept another opportunity prior to the full completion of the term. Will you commit, if you're elected, to serve the full term?
Yeah, this goes through 27, right? Yeah. I commit to serving the rest of this term. We'll see what happens after those 2 years. I mean, it's unair conditioned in that building, so I don't know. But yes, I commit to completing my term.
Thank you. Mr. Selders, same question.
Well, and I will say I'll be a hypocrite if I said I would, because I'm still in the middle of a term now seeking another seat. So if the opportunity, if God says the same, and that's what I would do.
Yes. Okay, so better elected position where you could represent more of the people.
Well, if it happens, if something. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My next question, starting with you, Ms. Simon. So, will you commit to removing all of your camp? And this always because we know that blight is something here that really if you live anywhere near or close to that religion, you know that blight is something. So this question is based off that. Will you commit to removing all of your
Yes, I definitely commit. Yes, I commit.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Yes, with one caveat. And my mom put this question, and she's very passionate about it. I did not after my congressional, partly because I was already starting to think about this one, and I'm the broke candidate. So whether it says Quentin for Congress, Quentin for Metro Council, I just need all of them out there. But after this one, I absolutely will within 30 days. Absolutely.
Everybody, these questions will submit by community.
Okay. Well, I bet.
Okay, the next question is going to be, East Parish is increasingly more diverse. And this includes individuals with language and disability challenges. Do you speak toward any language other than English or including sign language? represent, I mean, do you use or influence by any other language other than the English language? Or do you know any, or do you work?
Do I start?
Sign language.
Mi español no bien. I have a 1,371-day streak on Duolingo, but I don't know that I can try that in practice. No, but it's something that I'm working on, and in particular it is because, and I'm sure that Larry knows this as well, as you walk through this district, there are some communities here, and there's some open, unspoken secrets in this community. There are people who live in this community that don't speak English, and yet they would still be constituents. And particularly right now, it's important that this representative, this senator, is a chief champion for those people, and it matters that you can communicate with them. So it's important.
Caveat to that question would be, if you, knowing this, having this knowledge, how do you plan to communicate? How do you plan to effectively communicate and hear the needs and work with people?
My office's website will be at least bilingual, if not multilingual, but it's particularly bilingual because we know that we have a lot of Spanish speakers here. And those services that my office will be providing and will be connecting people to, people need to be able to understand them. In addition, I will prioritize bilingual skills in hiring a staff. I do get that, Louisiana, not everybody is bilingual, but it will be important to me because constituent services are important, and I need people to be able to communicate with all of our constituents.
Ms. Selders?
Yeah, we currently serve a community, in my house district that's bilingual. So we go out there and we talk to them, work with the Guardian Initiative. There's a lot of folks out there. So and my wife is a fluent speaking pediatrician, and so she served with some of those folks as well. So we're already kind of got the boots on the ground. But we do have to be kind of, like you said, more intentional about having folks. But we don't really have a big budget, so we have to look at the volunteers to come out there and really canvas with us and get those people.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Selders. My last wrap-up question from if elected, will you commit to holding at least quarterly community town hall meetings within your district?
Yes.
Yep. If not more.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And when you say you're going to hold the meetings, both of you could answer this question.
Yeah.
I guess my question will be, is it going to be like a centrally located place, or you're going to move within the district, or what are your thoughts? And I'll start with Mr. Selders.
Definitely moving within the district. I want to be easily accessible, and I want to be able to move around the district. Folks want to know that this district is not just old South Baton Rouge. This district is, this is a gumbo of Baton Rouge. It represents everybody. We have Southern University in this district. We have LSU in this district. We go all the way to University Club to Banks. So it's a very diverse district. And whoever sits in this seat needs to be a part of every community and be able to be relatable and talk to everybody about the issues.
Thank you, Mr. Selders.
Oh yeah, like one of the experiences that you get by being outraised in a congressional race like 100 to 1 is you learn that you have to do your events at all sorts of places, and so I'll do them I found this out during this campaign, like you have access to like rec centers and stuff, like as an elected official, so I'll do them at normal locations, but also I'll do them at barbershops, I'll do them at beauty shops, I'll do them wherever people are comfortable. I don't need a fancy location to break down the bills that we've been talking about and how it impacts people, so whatever gets people there, I'll prioritize it being on the bus line. I think that's important. But I'll do it anywhere, everywhere. I kind of like that part of the job.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We will now ask a series of questions for which both of you candidates will have a maximum of 1 minute to respond. And I'm going to start with you, Quentin Anderson. I'm going to ask, everyone talks about public safety, but what can you, as a state senator, do specifically to bring more resources to District 14 to address the root causes of crime?
Yeah, so I'm always cautious because I want people to understand that as a legislator, you're going into a body with a bunch of other people with a bunch of other interests, and in particular, I'm running as a Democrat, and so we're going into a super minority with a radical Republican governor. So often, what your job is to make bad bills not as bad. But you are always pushing your priorities, and my priority, particularly as it pertains to public safety, is that public safety is more than just policing. And it always has been. I think if you were to ask police officers, they would tell you that we can't stop somebody from committing a crime before they do it. This is a minority report. That's where policy comes in. And so making sure that we have the right resources in all aspects of public safety, including policing. I think that police officers make a tremendous sacrifice, and they need to be paid accordingly. They need benefits accordingly. Their families make a sacrifice. But they're not the only ones. They're not the only tool in our toolkit. Education is a huge part of it. If we're not investing on the front end, it is much more difficult to fix it on the back end. Making sure that people have not just employable skills, but profitable skills. Somebody once told me when I was working on a school-to-prison pipeline bill in Illinois that 99% of the time when young people are getting into trouble, they're just trying to get paid. So I use that as my North Star. How do I give you skills right now that not only get you paid, but start to give you stakes? Because for me, at the end of the day, the biggest deterrent to crime is stakes, having a stake in the future, knowing that you have something to lose. How many times have you heard somebody say, I'm not going to lose my job over this nonsense? That's a legit thing, though. Most of the time, the reason I don't go upside somebody's head is because I don't want to miss out on my paycheck next week. If we can make sure that young people, in particular in this community, feel like they have a stake in the future, and that's on us. That's on us in making sure that their education is top quality. That's on us in making sure that they have skills to make money if they feel like they need to. It is on us to make sure that on the front end, we are giving them the resources necessary. So that does mean funding our public schools, not diverting resources away from public schools. That does mean investing in beautification of neighborhoods. If you notice something about some of the safest neighborhoods, they also look safe as well. There's a correlation there. Investing in the things that we know work, evidence-based approaches, not just going on this sort of tyrannical crusade where we're hiring more officers and punishing people longer. We've done that for years, and we still have a rising crime rate. It makes you feel safe, but are you safe? I want to invest in the things that we know for a fact deter people from crime, the things that give people stakes.
Thank you. Mrs. Selders, you want to repeat?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, question was, everyone talks about public safety, but what can you as a state senator, if elected, do specifically to bring more resources to District 14 to address the root cause?
So, things that I've done, address mental health. I think mental health affects everybody. Mental health affects the school system. Mental health affects when I say that, I mean behavior, right? And when you're in school and you get labeled as a bad kid, sometimes, kids just going undiagnosed. I think those are the things we have to really address. Some bills that I passed or more access to care. Prior to COVID, we didn't have telehealth when it comes to mental health therapy here in Louisiana. So we offered things like telehealth and making it accessible around the state. Also, I had authored some legislation that dealt with blight. A lot of people, talk about our community, but sometimes we can't afford to fix up the houses. So my legislation, which was Act 477, what it did was it took the discretion away from the inspectors. Quentin said something earlier. You look like, the neighborhoods look like it's safer, but if I have an inspector using their discretion to say, hey, you have to come, your house has to be up to the 2024 code. And I'm in the Garden District and I have to have the 1980 code. It's going to be easier to fix up your house. So you're kind of pushing the goalposts back. Especially if my grandmother gave me a house to live in my community, but now I can't afford to put lights on because I can't get it up to code. But the law was you only have to have your house, your home, up to the code that it was built in order to get lights. That's the law. But what happened, those inspectors had discretion where they were picking winners and losers. So they'll go in my neighborhood in Old South Baton Rouge and say, hey, you got to have a sprinkler system in your house. Hey, you got to have, these rails around your house. But legally, they only had to go to the, let's say it was built in 2000, they only had to use the 2000 code. So I made legislation and authored it, and they took that discretion away. You only have to have that minimum code. So get the people back in the neighborhoods that can afford to fix it, and now we can build off that. Also had a legislation to make transparency into utility bills. That was Act 577, where some folks are living in these communities and they're paying for light bills that they couldn't even see. So you're talking about now you taking, and even the PNC couldn't regulate that. So we had to have legislation to regulate it. Say, look, if I'm telling you, they wasn't showing people how much the light bills were. They were just saying, hey, you got to pay us $50 a month, and there wasn't no legislation, no law that said they had to show us what my light bill is. And so so I had a Truth and Transparency utility bill, which was signed by the governor, which is Act 77. So it's always protecting, an underserved, always making things accessible to them. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm going to continue to do. And what I will do is I say, you can go to school, you'll get a hearing screening. You can go to school, you'll get a vision screening. But right now, they don't give parents the option to have mental health screenings. I think some of the stuff, we can catch it early, we can deal with it. I always talk about, I went to U-High, LSU Lab. I grew up in South Baton Rouge. My neighbors were labeled bad kids. My classmates were labeled, had attention deficit disorder. Right. And so those parents treated those kids early, when our kids, and my neighbors and my cousins, my friends, they try to beat it out you. They try to pray it out you. But they wasn't bringing folks to therapy. They wasn't bringing folks to the doctor and say, something's wrong, something's different about this child. And, and as I grew up, I was able to determine that this is something real. I went to school, I graduated in social work. And this is what gave me the passion to be a public servant. I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant. And that's really how I take the approach, and I look forward to continue to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Selders. The next question is going to be, this past legislature passed permanent carry. Yeah. We know this. But we know that gun violence is a real crisis. It's an American crisis. It's here in Louisiana as well. So with crisis being including suicides by gun and accidental death, sometimes even by children, what is your plan to address the gun issues here in District 14? I'll start with you, Mr. Selders.
That's another great question. I didn't make these questions up. I never seen these questions. I'm gonna tell you that. But I did author some legislation for that. Authored a Glock switch bill. It didn't go through. Actually, they let a Republican had the same bill. They let his go through, but mine didn't go through. But a Glock switch bill. We're talking about gun violence. Why would you have a gun, a Glock, a handgun with 30 bullets in it, unless you're going to hurt somebody? So that was some of the legislation. Get these dangerous guns off the street. I'm not saying I'm anti. I am a hunter, but I'm not hunting with a Glock. What made it an automatic weapon. So those are the kind of things that I have authored to try to correct things that I've seen in my community. I'm trying to fix. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sam?
Yeah. So I think that there are a couple things. The first thing, and I think it's the top priority, even if we're not able to do it, we need to keep on trying. We need to repeal the open carry legislation. It was dangerous legislation. For whatever reason, in this state, when stuff gets passed in the legislature, we act as if now it's written into stone. The same legislature that passed it can be a legislature that repeals it, and we need to. It's a dangerous bill. It's hugely dangerous. The other thing is I want to ban weapons of war. I want to ban assault weapons. I know that that's going to be difficult at the state level, but I'm going to advocate for it anyways. I'm going to be the voice advocating for it. I want to get guns out of school. I want to get resource officers out of school, armed resource officers out of schools as well. Because as long as you have a gun and a police officer in conflict, especially with our kids, you are just talking about trouble. I want to strengthen our red flag laws. I want to repeal. I want to increase our background checks, and I want to increase the waiting period as well for it. I want to close whatever sort of subversive loopholes there are, including the gun show loophole. I know that these are hard bills to pass. I know that these are hard policies for us to get across here in Louisiana, but they're also important. I think the misnomer about the conversation around gun violence is that we can't enforce common sense gun laws in different places. In Baton Rouge, in a very urban area, you don't need the same gun laws that you might need in Opelousas or in Rayville. Baton Rouge is a different place, and we need to have laws that reflect that. And what I'll fight for in the legislature is to make sure that the state is not preempting local gun laws that are made with the evidence of the local situation in mind. Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Monroe, Shreveport, those are very, very different cities, and they should not be subjected to the same lax restrictions that the rest of the state has. I think that they have a different circumstance, and I'll advocate to make sure that we're protecting those cities and the gun laws that they institute.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I'm going to remind those
I did it.
because of our time constraint. I do want to get to some of the questions from the audience. They're more important than I am. So, but I do have a few more questions here. So I'm going to remind you to try to keep your answer within 1 minute, please. Mr. Evans, so starting with you. District 14 includes some of the most valuable real estate in this parish, but it also includes some of the most economically stressed areas in this parish.
Yeah.
What do you believe the role of the state senator can do to help balance that when it comes to especially important dollars like transportation and economic development?
Yeah, I think that the role of the state senator is really important. Also, the role of the state representative is just as important. I believe in equitable funding. So one, your representative, your senator should always be doing the old school thing of bringing home the bacon. Whatever the budget is, whatever the bill is, getting resources out of that bill specifically for home. But then you don't apply those resources to the places that are already doing well. That's not the way that investment, that's not the way tax dollars are supposed to be. If there's a nice part of town, that part of town probably needs less investment than the part of town that has bad potholes, bad schools. So for me, it's not just getting that funding, but then shepherding that funding to make sure that it goes to where it's needed. I'm not just a vessel. So some of the people, and I'll end my answer here, some of the people that have approached me about wanting to fund my campaign, the whole thing that they've told me is, well, what we really want is somebody that once we get in there and we're making these deals, they'll take into account the greater capital region as opposed to just your district. But I know what that means. That means that they want the happy-go-lucky legislator that will sell out 70805 so that we can build something nice over by City Place, or we can build something nice on Blue Bonnet. I'm not going to be that person. I'm going to secure the funding, and we're going to invest in 70805. We're going to invest in Old South, and we're going to invest in public transit.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Same question, Mr. Selders.
Oh yeah, and I get it, right? When I first ran for state office, I didn't have I didn't have any fundraisers actually. Sponsor my own campaign, so I didn't have to worry about being somebody's guy. I'm my own guy, and I'm a guy to these 2 boys and my wife, and these folks that I serve. So I think the biggest thing is for me was every neighborhood in this district I actually lived in. My mom, when I was growing up, we rented my whole life. So, I lived in Gardere. I lived in Dixie. I lived in Easytown. I lived in Old South Baton Rouge. So I had the opportunity to grow up in those areas and see, what we need. But would also learn, being an elected official, that you have to work with the city of Baton Rouge. There's more avenues. You have to be able to work with the housing authority. You put money into those places. You put money with the city. You put money with Brett, for parks and recreation. A lot of folks say, I'm going to bring money to a certain place, but there's no plans. We collectively have to have plans. We have to work with our Metro Council members. We have to work with the school board. We have to work with our churches and have a plan. You don't just bring money to an empty lot. Because there's so many regulations, and that's how you not get the money, because you're asking for money, you're fighting for money. So if you don't have a plan, there's no way to bring it to. So you have to work with the municipalities, got to work with the city to really be effective, and that's what I've learned of being a legislator.
Thank you, Mr. Selders. Next question will be: we know right now in our legislature, the Republicans have a supermajority. We know that some of the most challenging bills being good for the wealthy, bad for the low income, have been passed in this last session. Please describe how you believe, if you're elected, you can impact or have some thought or influence on the continued loss of economic power, especially when it comes to the deficit in the lower community.
No, absolutely. We've been in a minority. When I passed this, this is a list of legislation that I passed. When I passed this legislation for the mental health in prisons, when I passed the legislation for transparency in utility bills, when I passed legislation to take power away from inspectors You know, I passed legislation to take power away from Entergy. I was fighting the big man. Now, these are bills that affect folks that need it the most. You know, I think, you know, and I talk about, you know, access to care, I talk about behavioral health, because these are folks that need it the most. You know, everybody can't go, you know, to the doctor, or everybody can't go to a psychiatrist. So you got to make this stuff, you know, that's why I talk about the mental health, and I always talk about telehealth, because there's not a lot, there's not a lot of psychiatrists here in Baton Rouge, but there's one in, you know, another parish. Previously, you couldn't even go see that person. You know, now with new legislation, you can go out like 50-mile radius outside to get those services. So that's, you know, that's the things I've been doing, you know, as a legislator now, and I just continue to do it. And that's because I work across the aisle. That's because I work with these folks, you know, and it's apparent in the legislation that I made Juneteenth a state holiday. You know, that's stuff you have to be bipartisan on. You know, folks are getting paid also, you know, for Juneteenth, you know, and so those are the things you have to do when you're working together, and we're able to accomplish. So I just look forward to continue to do the work.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, the question is basically the Republicans have a supermajority now. We know that the rich are getting richer, some of the more, and that the poor communities are still suffering a lot of economic loss. How could you, or would you, as a state senator, address that drainage of assets and funding to the lower community?
Yeah, so it's going to be tough, and it was not made any easier by Jeff Landry's tax reform that he passed at the end of the year, which did raise our cost of living. But, you know, if you're rich, you're doing pretty well. So, you know, if you can get a deal like that, take it. That does make our job more difficult, though, in the state legislature, because tax cuts aren't free, and I think that people are under the impression that they are. Tax cuts come out of the budget, so all of those millions of dollars that millionaires and billionaires now get to sit on, that was money that was going to our schools, that was money that was going to our roads, that was money that was going to our cops and our first responders. So what most of the job of the next 2 years is going to be the legislature cleaning up its own mess. Because most of the legislature voted for those tax reforms, including most of the Democratic caucus. And so if you want to know what would be different about me versus the rest of the Democratic caucus that already exists, it would not have happened over my dead body. I would not have voted for that bill. Because I represent a certain constituency. It's not my job to look out for other constituencies. It's my job to look out for District 14. And that bill was bad for District 14. And it is going to have, monumental consequences on our budget. I know that Democrats think that they made a deal with Republicans to save certain programs. I would not trust that deal as far as I can throw it. So most of what I'll be doing when I get to the Senate is trying my very best to keep as many critical programs from the chopping block. But even then, it's going to be largely about trying to find out what are the core vital services that those programs offer and trying to protect those. It's not going to be great. I don't want to make promises that if you elect me, you know, the sun is going to shine, rainbows are going to be here, and the tides are going to rise. That's not what's going to happen. But what's going to happen is, at the very least, you will have a chief advocate trying to save the programs that are on the chopping block, in part due to not only the Republicans, but the Democrats in the legislature this past year.
Thank you so much. Last question, it's going to be real quick, and wait for you to close up. What is your vision for making District 14 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 14 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving in the legislature. Starting with you, Ms. Nancy.
Yeah, so I don't have 3, I have 5. I want to raise wages. I want to raise the minimum wage in this state. I want to protect workers, particularly in the age of AI and automation. If you haven't been watching the news, good for you, because your mental health is probably better. But also, you don't know that the future is coming really, really quickly. I want to invest in our public schools. It is the great equalizer. And I'm not going to be distracted by getting public funds to private interests. I want to make sure that we are reducing crime, but doing it smartly with evidence-based approaches. And I want to make sure that we're expanding health care to as many people as humanly possible, that we're taking advantage of the Medicaid expansion as much as humanly possible, that we bubblegum and paperclips a charity hospital system again so that we can expand access both to the underserved and also the rural communities. So these are my priorities, and this is what I will fight for. But I'll fight for it because I have a North Star of what I want to see in this district. I think that this is the crown jewel of Baton Rouge. This district is. It includes all the places that Larry talked about. It includes downtown. It is what you think of when you think of Baton Rouge. When you Google Baton Rouge, you're going to see District 14. So what I want to see is I want to see a comprehensive public transportation system. I want to see light rail that goes all the way from Southern University to LSU and everywhere in between. I want to actually finish the New Orleans to Baton Rouge commuter rail. I want our police officers to be paid well, but I also want a multifaceted public safety system here in Louisiana that doesn't just rely on policing, but actually relies on the other tools in our toolkit. I want a budget that is equitable, that understands that investments in young people, investments in underserved community pay off tenfold later on. This is not about charity. It's about protecting our future. So if I get elected, what I'm going to fight for is the investments that make our future more secure, more sound, and more prosperous.
Thank you so much, Mr. Selders.
And I think, I'm not going to say I think my plan is, you see who you want to be. And I say that because a lot of folks that I grew up with in my community never had access. I never met a lawyer, that lived in my neighborhood. I never met a doctor that lived in my neighborhood. And so I think that a lot of stuff, the root cause is not having access, not seeing it. And I think with the churches, I think with community partners, we need to start taking back our schools. We need to let folks know that we have successful people that look like us that exist, and you don't have to just look up to the drug dealers and the gangsters in your neighborhood. Because I will say, those are the folks that I was seeing. Mm-hmm. Those are the folks that I was like, they're the cool people until I got older. Because I didn't know I was poor until I was grown. I didn't know I was poor. Like people, poor people don't think they're poor. No. Because we have a lot of stuff that people in other neighborhoods don't have, which is love. And we have resources, and we just, I think about gumbo started because that was the bottom of the barrel, but we made it great. Now they selling gumbo as gourmet dinners. So what we have in our community, I think that we have valuable resources. And I will say, I didn't know Louisiana and half the resources that I'm not going to even lie that's here existed. I didn't know anything about the maritime industry. Those pilots right down the river that's in the district and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I've never met a captain of a ship. Those are the things we got to let people in these schools know. Hey, this is right here in your front door. I just don't think the kids in some of these schools are connected to the resources. I think that a lot of folks, I didn't know folks that worked in the plant made so much money. Mm-hmm. If the plant workers not coming to the school, say, hey man, I make over $100,000. I'm living pretty good. If the people that drive these ships, you don't have to drive. You don't have to be a pilot to make $100,000. But if they're not coming to the schools and telling us, well, how would you know? BRCC is in this district. It's a pipeline to go into. Because we're talking about creating jobs, opportunity. That's what I want to do. And like the first thing I want to do is get a coalition of people, men and women, that who we deem success or who they deem success, and so people can see what it looks like. That's what gave me my opportunity, a mentor. And that's what it gave me my opportunity, a mentor. And that's somebody that didn't live on my street and that showed me, hey, you can be more than just this.
Thank you so much. We're now going to move to the question phase where I'm going to ask you several questions that were submitted by people from the community. Yep. I'm going to ask you, please be mindful of the time again. I try to ask the 30 seconds to a minute if you possibly can. First question is going to be for you, Mr. Hughes. And this question was submitted by one of our youth program advocates. It said the school day ends at 2:30 for all high school and middle school students, while elementary schools get out at 3:30. Parents typically have traditional work hours from 9 to 5. As a state senator, do you have a plan for unsupervised youth, and how would you implement a plan to help in this situation?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, you said Hughes.
Yeah. I was waiting for that.
I mean, I got it. So I sat on a breakboard for 8 years, right? And so there's a lot of resources that we don't even know about that exist. After school care programs. I think it's very important to have resources from the state to fund those after-school programs, because that's, a lot of times, it's hard for parents. Like, when I was a freshman in high school, my mom was a freshman in college with 4 boys, so I had to catch a bus to Southern and sit in an empty class because we had nothing else to do, but we have to have those resources. But I also talked about it earlier, we have the partnership with Brett. The state can't do it, but Brett can, the city of Baton Rouge can, and from the state's perspective, we have to give those, we got to put tools in the toolbox is what they say, and that's money. We're going to hire those tutors and get those kids off the street. But we also have to pique their interest as well, and I always said, and I actually ran for Metro Council. I was 25 years old. I lost by 6 votes. Jesus. And I said, if I become a Metro Council person, I'm going to put video games in there because kids don't want to come there. And you have to do your homework, then you can play on the video games. I'm going to put a recording studio in there because kids want to record, and that'll kind of pique their interest. I'm over 30 seconds, I'm sorry. Those kind of things I think we need. We got to get those kids interested.
Okay. I see what you're saying. And see the good thing about that. When you had to sit there in the classroom, you had plenty of time to study.
Oh, yeah. A lot.
Next question for you, Mr. Anderson. This question was submitted by one of our local business owners here. It says the new administration in Baton Rouge and at the federal level both has resulted in a level of certainty towards many previous operating programs and services and its funding sources. What do you see as your role in coordinating with the multiple governmental levels and agencies to keep the critical services flowing in your district?
Yeah, so I think this is really timely because of what happened today. The federal government is now going to politicize all funding for everything, including for states, and that's half of our state budget, so that's going to be nice. What I will fight for as a result of, I think, this changing dynamic, where I think the politicization of funding, both from the federal government and the state government, if you guys haven't been paying attention to how Landry is treating LSU, that's how you get somebody to submit. I will fight for longer-term funding. That way, at the very least, everybody who is dependent upon state and federal funding at least doesn't have to do this dance on an annual basis. The longer that we can fund them, the less that they have to get caught up in some of the politics of what's going on right now. So that is the angle that I'll fight for. When I'm in these negotiations, when people are talking about 12 months, 18 months, I'm going to be talking about 24 months, 48 months, because my North Star is getting them past this administration, getting people past the politicization of the next few years of the Landry administration. Hopefully it's just one term. But getting past the politicization so that we can get back to a place where I do believe in annual reviews, but right now what's happening right now is you're making programs, you're making people, leaders of departments, essentially kowtow to your politics, and I don't think that that's right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Selders, next question is submitted by another youth program advocate. The Trump administration has indicated it wants to eliminate FEMA and require states to absorb most of the costs of disasters and other ways for recovery. What is your thoughts about addressing this issue and ensuring that our state still has proper and adequate recovery?
Well, first of all, I don't think he can do that, not without the Congress, and I think we have a great congressman that's up there going to fight to keep those resources. So it's, a lot of stuff is, like I say, political, just, I don't even know the word, is mess, and they can't even do it, right? We're in South Louisiana, man. We need FEMA. We have hurricanes, we just had a doggone ice storm, and we're not even equipped for that. If we'd have had that for a couple more days, we would have just shut everything down, so I don't think that. All we need to do is go to D.C. and ask, and Congress. I can't really do anything about that. Honestly, just other than have a great working relationship with our congressman. Okay. Yeah, I know I can't do anything with FEMA.
Yeah. Having a great relationship with Congress always helps.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Mr. Anderson. This question was submitted by one of our senior advocates. Okay. And elder care abuse, lack of affordable housing. Adequate transportation resources, technology assets, and assistance with learning are all inadequate at this present time. there are some critical needs. Do you have any plans to address these needs?
There's a wide swath of different needs, and when you start talking about the legislature and you start talking about direct program, it's going to sound like a broken record because we start talking about funding again. I think I kind of want to go back to the point that I made earlier about the situation that we're going into. We're going to have a compromised budget. It's not just the tax bill. I just mentioned the fact that the Trump administration is going to withhold aid to the states, and for us, that's about half of our budget. So it sort of circles back to the previous answer, which is we're going to have to triage. What are the services that are most necessary for our community? What are the ones that are serving our community most directly and urgently, and how much can we save those? As a selfish representative of District 14, I'm going to be fighting tooth and nail for everything that is servicing our seniors in this district, including Meals on Wheels and things like that. But again, I don't want to overpromise. We will likely see reductions, but I do think that it matters the advocacy of your state senator, how deep those cuts go.
Okay. Thank you so much. Last question for each of you before I get to the audience. Start with you, Mr. Anderson. Question was submitted by one of our representatives of the Public Defender's Office.
Yes.
Which is, people do not know, the Public Defender's Office is the largest firm. I don't care how many of those other commercials you see on TV. That's the largest defense firm in the state. Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to public safety, we know there's a precedent set. We hear it all the time. We have misused a lot of times, as you and I may know. But in these discussions that are ongoing in these various forums, when they talk about public safety, when they talk about the importance of public safety, do you think the Public Defender's Office should have a seat at the table and be the leader of some of these conversations? And if so, how do you plan to include them?
Yeah, absolutely. In the same way that prosecutors are a part of the conversation when we talk about law enforcement, public defenders absolutely should be a part of the conversation, not just because of the clients that they take on, but oftentimes your lawyer is also a parallel investigator to what's going on. So these are folks who are embedded in the community. They know what's going on. They know what the root causes are. They're invested in these cases and in their clients in ways that social workers are. So they absolutely need to be at the table. They need to be a part of the conversation. They need to be a critical part of the conversation. We have too many prosecutors in those conversations. We do need some folks that are not just defense attorneys, but are institutional defense attorneys. So they know exactly what's happening. They know the injustices that many of these clients are facing, many of these defendants are facing. I want them at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, Mr. Selders. Also a question from the Public Defender's Office. We know the public defense systems are consistently and well underfunded.
Right.
Leads to many individuals navigating the system through lack of resources, lead to a lot of people taking plea bargains and things of that nature because they could not have adequate defense. To address this, how do you plan to try to help make the Public Defender's Office more fundable and more beneficial to better serve the clients in which they represent?
So earlier I talked about HB 328, and so that was actually a public defender's bill to help them. Public defenders right now, they spend maybe $10 million defending folks with mental illnesses across the state. So those, if we take stuff that's on their plate that they shouldn't be addressing and dealing with, and we set up more clinics like Jackson, hospitals like Jackson hospitals, and use more resources that way, then the public defender have more time to really defend people. I think you're wasting a lot of resources with public defenders not doing stuff they're supposed to be doing, and they're not being social workers. So I think we just need, and from our perspective is, I think they put the public defender's office now under the Attorney General's office. I think is what they just did, right? And so
they put it under
exactly, with the governor. So I think that was one of their ways of saying that they're going to give more money to the public defender's office. But if we can't directly give them more money, then and we can't help them. So I think more money, less responsibilities when it comes to non-lawyer stuff, or give them a team of social workers to work under their office. I think it'll be a lot better.
Thank you. And thank you, audience, and thank you for being patient. At this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop talking for a moment. I'm going to give the audience a chance. If you have any questions for either the candidates, or if you have a general question that you would like to hear both the candidates answer, I'm just going to ask that you please raise your hand so we can speak to the audience if there's any question. Yes, sir.
This is for Larry Selders. I heard you speaking earlier about how you like for there to be sort of shadowing, mentoring options, sort of different jobs and such. Obviously, there's more jobs than being a rapper, a plant worker, or an actor. So, what programs or things would you like to jumpstart in which they be able to find those programs or find those different job opportunities?
So that maritime industry thing is something that's real, and so I've been working with the maritime industry lately to develop programs where we get. I think last year we did maybe 15, 20 kids. They were able to drive them to New Orleans. The river pilots gave them tours, and they also have. So I want to put that in the schools. I want to do more tours actually on the river. We have a lot of boats, and so it's really access, man. Like I didn't even know this stuff existed until I became a legislator. I didn't know how much agriculture was in Louisiana until I became a legislator. I grew up here in Baton Rouge, but the committees I sat on is ag, and so when I started touring the state, I'm like, we have $1 billion industry in agriculture that we don't even talk about. Those other rural areas, they have 4-H. We don't have 4-H in Baton Rouge. So those are the kind of things we need access to, and that starts early, and I think it's because of my life experiences from living here, and then once I became a legislator, seeing Baton Rouge in this small pot, and then seeing like everything around us. So you go right across the river, and you see all these sugarcane fields, but you don't know how much money these folks making. And so I just think that touring these places, and I'll tell you a real story. I know we don't have a small period of time, but I know a doctor that grew up in Baton Rouge, lives here, have kids here, went to Catholic High. And he said, hey, Larry, I've never been on the bluff until I took my daughter there for a cheerleader competition. Now, this man is 56 years old and never been on Southern's campus at all. I have people that live in my neighborhood. I say, hey, man, I'm going to Whole Foods in Town Center, and they don't know where it is. And so I think that, we're such a parish and a place with beautiful people and a lot of love, but it's so divisive. And it's one of the biggest things you don't know. You don't know. I got people I went to school with that's only been on Plank Road to go to Tony's. That's a problem. And so when I talk about that, I just want to be more intentional. This position has honestly gave me access, and the purpose of this is to lift as I climb, right? So as I get a new position in life, it's pushing the people up that's coming up under me. I'm pulling them up because I'm sitting on somebody's shoulders to get to where I am. If I'm not sharing this information with my community, I'm doing an injustice. You know what I mean? If I'm not taking the kids that's in my neighborhood and showing them that they can make money outside, like you say, outside of being a police officer, everybody's not going to be a lawyer. Everybody's not going to be a doctor. But if you don't even know this other stuff exists, you won't know. And so I feel like that's one of the many jobs, is to show people access. Like I said, I'm always going to say I'm a social worker. My degree is in social work. And I advocate for people. I empower people. And I'm going to continue to do that. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, man, because I've seen it.
Thank you, Mr. Selders. Just for the record, there's nothing wrong with being a lawyer.
It's not.
Yes, sir. From
Yes. My name is Edwin Smith, and I started an organization, EBR Parish Civic Association. Like Mr. Bell here, Dr. Bell. I grew up in this community. I was born and raised here. I remember when this library was in the community center down there on Goodshire Avenue. I'm passionate about kids, man. I love children. My question is for both of the candidates here. I've been paying attention a lot to the legislature, and I see where the legislature passed the ESAs, the Education Savings Accounts, which will divert
public school funding to private schools. And that hits hard with me because I remember, Dr. Bell, I remember in 1982, I was at Capitol High School in the 9th grade, but I was forcefully bused to Bel Air High School in 1982. So I'm very, very concerned about what the legislature did this past session with the last year with the ESAs. Do you all? My question is, do any one of the candidates, do any one of y'all have plans to, if you're elected, to repeal the ESAs, even though I know the law has already been passed, and they've actually started, I think they've already started they've hired a company to actually oversee it. But that's my question for both of the candidates.
Okay. Well, as I said earlier, I am a strong supporter of public schools, and I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand why I'm so kind of black and white about this. Public schools are supposed to be the great equalizer. What does that mean? It means that the school around the corner needs to be the best education that you can possibly get. And if it's not, then we have to invest as much as we can to make sure that it is. And the reason being is you should not be punished for your family's economic situation. If you were born to poor parents, you should not then be punished because now you live in a poor neighborhood and you're going to go to a poor school. Because what is that going to mean? It's going to mean that you probably had inadequate resources, and so you're going to either be discriminated against by colleges and employers, or you're not going to actually qualify. If we start testing you, you won't be at the same level as people that live in nicer neighborhoods. So how do you eliminate that? How do you eliminate generational poverty? Well, you invest in our public schools. That is the principle. That's why you can't have both. You can't say that we're investing in our public schools and we're making them the best possible schools ever, but we're also investing in private school vouchers. We're also diverting funds in charter schools that are undermining the public school system. The school around the corner has to be the best possible school that you can go to. It has to be as good as the school down the street, as good as the school across the country. That is the premise of public schools. So, if Capitol High is failing, the answer is not to shut down Capitol High and find some other alternative. It is, what does it take to invest in Capitol High so that Capitol High is not failing? Because it is important that Capitol High is where Capitol High is, that neighborhood can walk to Capitol High. You should not have to travel to get to the best possible education that this country can provide for you. So I am black and white about it. I do not support diverting public funds to anything other than public, traditional, community-based schools. I don't make any bones about it. If the bill for repeal comes up, I'll vote for it. But I will absolutely always be an advocate for public schools because I understand what the assignment is. And the assignment is our schools have to be properly funded, and there's no other conversation.
We can agree to disagree. And I say that because I do believe in school choice. My mom made a choice and a sacrifice, and to send me to U-High. It was an opportunity to get me out of my community and show me something different. I feel like, and I was able to go there because of scholarship program. I wasn't an athlete, but I meant because I couldn't afford it. They had programs there that allowed me to have that opportunity to go to University High. So I was able to experience a different lifestyle or meet different people because of the access. I have children, and I'm not with the if they build it, they will come. I'm not going to put my child in a school that have an opportunity to put them in a better serving school. That's not doing it. That's doing your children a disservice. And so there's, and even with charter schools, there's an aviation academy. If my kid want to be a pilot, why wouldn't I want them to have the opportunity to go to a charter school that offers aviation? That's doing a kid a disservice. Now, I do believe we should better our schools, we should fund our schools, but also believe for opportunity. And if you don't know about opportunity, you can't miss what you never had. But I don't believe in putting my kid in a F school just because it's down the street from my house. I want the best for my children, and I want everybody to want the best for their children. And so I'll be a hypocrite to say, that it wasn't good enough for me or for my children. Why would I want your children to go there or not have the opportunity to go there?
Thank you, sir.
Let's be clear. I'm a school teacher, and when we call something an F school, it's a misnomer. we are recreating the same systematic inequity. If it's based on property taxes, longest money decides, we know this. We can't do all public. We can't do full-on charter. I went from teaching at a local school where I had very little parent support, not because the parents didn't care, but they could not get off during the day necessarily. Okay? I taught at Terra where 20% of the population is Spanish speaking. Some of the kids are bilingual, but it's 20% Spanish speaking. And the kids are being bussed in from Garnier. It's being called at school when it is underfunded in the middle of one of the richest neighborhoods that just happens to be named after the plantation from Gone with the Wind. So we have to be very clear about what's happening. I think this either or game that you gentlemen are playing, and no, I mean to call it a game, it's a false dichotomy. We can't do one or the other. The ESAs are fact. They are fact. What can we do with what we have now? And just so you know, as a school teacher, some of the baddest teachers I have ever met were the ones who could shake and move at a so-called F school. As someone who taught at F and is now at an A, I'm blowing their minds. Because I had to be that girl at the F school. Okay?
Can we take that as a follow-up? Can we take that as a question? Just 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay. I agree with you. And I think, like, practically speaking, when I'm not wearing the hat of if I become a state senator, I live in that gray area. And I understand what Larry's talking about. When you're talking about your kids, it's not an experiment. Like, they're happening right now, and if that school sucks right now, then I'm going to send my kid to a better school. My point is, one, what I represent is a perspective when I get to the legislature. And there will be other people that represent perspectives like Larry is talking about, and what the ultimate legislation and policy will look like will be somewhere in between. But it is important that there are chief, strong advocates for funding our public schools 100%, because you're probably not going to get 100%. But if I ask for 60%, guess what I'm going to get? 55. So what I'm thinking about it from the perspective of is, when I get into that room, I'm going to be the public school person. I get that there are many constituents that need other alternatives, but for me, in order to fight the way that I need to for public schools, I have to stay in this corner on this one.
And to be clear, we're not against the charter school. We are against using our money to pay for the
No, I respect everybody's opinion. My mom teaches 4th grade in the school system, so you can't tell me nothing about no school. I get it, you know what I'm saying? But like I said,
You have a question, sir? Yes, sir.
Rep. Selders, in committee you voted for HB1, which was Jeff Landry's disastrous flat tax scheme that raised prices on low and middle income families and gave a tax break to the wealthiest Louisianians. Based on that, why do you deserve a promotion to the Senate when you're not voting in our best interests now?
so I guess I can follow up.
That'd be an interesting one for me.
Hey, absolutely.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I will absolutely answer that.
Hey. So it's a packet, right? And I literally just said my mom's a teacher. You know, this in this packet, you know, it was a permanent teacher pay raise. I think teachers deserve a pay raise. In this packet, if you make under $25,000 in the state of Louisiana, which is the poorest people, you don't have to pay taxes. You know, and some of the most vulnerable people, you know, in Louisiana, which are the seniors, now they have a double deduction. So, you know, some stuff was in it that I didn't like, some stuff was in it that I liked. But when you're talking about, for me, you know, the poor people benefited from this package. We can talk after if you want to go back and forth. I'll give you my number and everything as well. I don't want to.
I think you had a question. Did you have a question?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say I'm a new member in this district, so I'm grateful for both of you being here. But I often find that we're always, at least myself as an engaged citizen, I'm always in these candidate forums. And the words are great, and I really appreciate all of that. Ben, Quentin, I know you're not currently an elected official, but earlier one thing that really sparked my interest is you said you would hold candidate forums often.
Yep.
Mr. Selders being elected. And I want to know, as a current House representative, when was the last time you did that?
I think we did a post session like maybe 4 months ago. We did it at BRCC. I think I said that as well. And I did say I should do better. I think I said that as well too. I did. Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I want to piggyback on something that you just talked about, taxes. Just that June, Mr. Selders said that the poorest people, $25,000, they don't pay taxes. I really think that should be 50. For $25,000, you need food stamps, you need every resource that the government and the city and whoever else can give. For $25,000, you're not making that.
No, absolutely.
You're not making $25,000. That is nothing. I mean, I went into Walgreens the other day and found out that they have soap under lock and key. I mean, because people stealing soap.
Yeah.
People are that desperate at this point in time in the world we're living in.
Yeah.
So $25,000 is absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree.
So I want.
I'm agreeing with you.
50,000 as the mark.
We gotta get our teachers making that.
No taxes at 50,000.
Are there any more questions from the audience at this time? Yes, ma'am.
How you doing tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Lady in purple.
Royalty.
Nice.
As a parent and disabilities advocate, oftentimes our individuals with disabilities are not afforded accommodations, modifications, and accessibility to our elected officials and any of your open meetings. As an elected official, what would you do to increase their access, accommodations, and their ability to attend any of your forums or any of your events that you have, as well as what would you do to increase the language access for those that are nonverbal or communicate with American Sign Language, or those that are English language learners?
I guess I'll go. So a lot of different things. One, we want to make sure that all the venues that we're hosting these in are ADA compliant, but even when we can make additional retrofits, we'll do that. As an aside, that's also something that I'll fight for in the legislature. As you're knocking on doors, I'm sure that Larry has seen this, I'm sure Carolyn has, particularly in our neighborhoods, there are quite a few homes that have people that have disabilities, and the homes are not retrofitted properly. I want to make sure that we fund that so that people aren't struggling to get in and out of their homes, or they're not just sort of bubble gum and paper clipping it, which I've seen quite a bit as well. I think one of the great things about technology is I think it makes it a little bit easier for us to be able to provide visual assistance for those that speak American Sign Language, so I'll incorporate that as well. I'm a big technology person. That's one of the reasons why all my stuff looks good, despite the fact that my campaign budget is like 5% of his. I've gotten used to leveraging technology and limited resources to being able to make sure everybody has access to what we're doing. In addition, and I said this earlier, I'll make sure that my office's website is bilingual. If we have other languages that are spoken in the district, we'll make sure that those are accessible. We'll make sure that any documents that are at those town halls are also provided in English and in Spanish. So we're going to make sure that any constituent that has any engagement with us doesn't have a barrier of language or access. Those should be, that should be essentially like writing your name on the test. We're going to get that stuff right.
Absolutely, and I say that because I'm trying to get the host. I see you at the Capitol all the time. I sit on health and welfare. She's definitely a strong advocate, and I don't think that folks with disabilities shouldn't be discriminated at all. I actually think that any meeting that's open to the public, they're the public. So I don't, when you talk about special accommodations, I think they should be in the meetings. I have cousins and friends and family members with, sometimes you have Tourette's, so you speak out and you blurt out. I don't think they've ever been held in contempt at any meeting. I think, and they're welcome. I've never been in a position, going through college, I worked in the group homes. I worked with adjudicated youth and also worked with folks with disabilities, so I have a special place in my heart, and that's what I do. I think they should be in the community, like in group homes. I used to get beat up on that, and I think they should be in meetings. So there's nothing special, other than communicating, but you can't kick nobody out of the meeting because they don't communicate like you do, and I just, And that's wholehearted how I feel. So, but I do understand because you're always there and you always show up and show out.
I want to thank the audience for raising the question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Please forgive me.
My name is Pearl Ford, and I'm from the 70805 area. I actually been there for 50. I came there in 1972 at 17 years old. I graduated out of St. Helena High School, and one of my fathers, like I said, with 70805, and we talk about those F schools, and I was there when they took Dr. Trotter at Prescott Middle School. And my thing is, and the question to you all is, as we're talking about F schools, but the schools are not F, it's the children. Yeah. It's the children. And this is what we've got to get straight. We've got to get straight. I've been in 70805 for 53 years this year. So, I'm not a number, I'm not a figure. 70805 is not the 70805 band, it's the people. Right? So and one of the things, families, that's my minister, I'm a minister, and I have a goal to put the value back on our families. Okay? So as a senator, do y'all have anything in mind that you can help us get us, and I have about two, and I'll be honest with the legislature, because I have 3 bills to get passed. Yes, ma'am. To see about, because I have 6 children, I have 6, I have 1 child, and it's 5, and I raised them up in 70805. They all graduated high school, they graduated college. I have 2 daughters with master's degrees. These children came out of 70805. But nobody ever talks about these kids. Okay? But I realized something, and I won't hold y'all. But this is what needs to really be focused on, as y'all, whichever one God sees fit to put in as our signature.
Yes, sir.
So your question is, how will they, as senators, help strengthen the family?
Help strengthen families.
Yes, ma'am.
Do y'all have anything or thought about anything that we can come to? I'll be there to help you to come up with something to help strengthen our family, because that's what's going to start in. Right there.
Okay, Mr. Selders.
And before I was a legislator, before I was on the break board, I started this company called Focus Family Services. Focus Family Services. You know, I know what it's like to have a hard-working mama. You know, and I know, you know, what it's like to you know, like I said, I didn't realize I was poor until I was older, you know, but I do know what it's like. And so I started this company because I just wanted to focus on the family. How can we make our family dynamics better? What can we do? And I just came up to the realization, like, a lot of stuff starts with the mental health. A lot of stuff starts with access. And I just think that, you know, and people see who they want to be. And I just think it's so important that you don't just make it and just leave. You don't just make it and you leave. But if you decide to leave or move to Zachary or Prairieville, you come back. You know, you know, let the folks see you. You know, be an example. And I just think that in our communities, we don't have a lot of mentors. You know, she said it clearly. She raised her kids. You know, it was her and her husband raised their kids. They were the example. They had somebody to look up to. They made it through college. And so we got a lot of broken households. So we got to figure out how to put those back together. You know, we got to figure out how to, you know, even with like legislation I've passed, we're talking about if you get a college degree, a bachelor's, it's a 0% recidivism rate. You don't go back to jail. You know, you talking about those are the type of men we need to get back on the streets to show the example. So that's the kind of things I want to continue to fight for. And, you know, right now I'm doing it in the House, and I love what I do. And I'm going to continue to ask for your votes. I'm going to continue to ask for your prayer. I'm going to continue to ask for your support. And if I have the opportunity to serve in the Senate, and it's going to be on a larger scale, and I'm going to continue to fight.
Okay. All right.
And I think that for me, because we're not talking about policies that get inside of your home, but we're talking about policies that support your ability to be a solid family. And so one of the things that I think about is somebody asked earlier about my vision for the school day and the school system. And I actually want to see our schools get to a place of being 9 to 5. Even if the teachers aren't teaching 9 to 5. I don't want you teaching 9 to 5. But I want the community, I want those schools and those facilities to be open 9 to 5 that mirrors the adult workday. That way parents aren't trying to figure out how to take care of their kids between those gap hours. I want to make it a resource place where young people are learning employable and profitable skills. One of the reasons why some of these young men are leaving their families and not stepping up to their responsibilities is they're feeling like they don't have the economic infrastructure to be able to take care of a family. I want to make sure that every single person has no excuse in terms of being able to provide for themselves and their family. If you have a laptop and access to the internet, you can build a website, you can start taking care of your family, you can start coding. So I want to make sure that we're doing the ancillary things on the outside that make it easier for families just to focus on taking care of each other, loving each other, spending time with each other. The more that we're doing on the outside, the more that we're providing meals at school for kids so that kids aren't going hungry, that's another stressor that we take away from the home. So I want to do the things that we know can work from the outside that support families being strong on the inside.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson. Yes, ma'am.
You all familiar with the Flame School, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We should replicate that all over the state. We should be bilingual. Every child should be taught a different language. Because that's only here in America. In the rest of the world, they get taught several languages.
Well, one thing, and it's not a lot. One thing I will say is I just heard this on the news. They said in China, every kid in there is the smartest kid in the room, and in the United States, we actually have the phrase "the smartest kid in the room." And so that's an issue. We do need to start focusing on making sure that all of our kids get the best possible education, not just the bare minimum. That's what we're doing right now. The fact that kids graduate without speaking a second language or all that's nonsense.
All right, I'm going to thank everyone again. I think the questions were amazing. I think the dialogue was amazing. I thank you, Madam Teacher, for your insight. But I thank my candidates, and I wanted to give them the opportunity. I'm going to ask them to try to stick within 2 minutes.
I got it.
If they can, but I'm going to give them the opportunity to pose and to give you some thoughts, swinging thoughts as they go.
I guess I went. Okay. So, thank you all for coming out. I know that this is a quick turnaround campaign, and everybody just went through a year of probably the worst election that we've all lived through, so I know that there's also a little bit of PTSD, but this shows that you all care. And that's what's most important. It's one of the reasons why I'm running. In communities like ours, often elections kind of just become muscle memory. Somebody tells you who to vote for, this is who we're voting for, and then we vote for them. And then they don't deliver, and then the next election comes around, and that same name is on top of the ballot again, and we're told to vote for them again. And it never says why we're voting for them, and it never holds them accountable for what they didn't do the last time. It just tells us just to keep the train going. What I'm asking folks to do, if you are unhappy with the way that things have been in Louisiana, if you are unhappy with your representation, if you are unhappy with that legislature, if you want change, that change starts on February 15th. You're not going to be able to wholesale change, but it starts with the next vote that you take. It starts with you doing your due diligence, you kicking the tires, you lifting the hood, you asking the questions. Ask what they have done. Ask what they're going to do. Ask them what their vision is. What is their North Star? What guides them? Ask them who sent them. All of these things are important. Because your representative, as I said earlier, that is your friend in a high place. That is the person that when your interests are on the line, when your future is on the line, when your family, when your community's destiny is on the line, they're the person that's going to be negotiating on your behalf. So ask yourself this: who do you trust when those doors close to fight strongest for you, to fight boldest for you, to not compromise, to actually know what the assignment is, and to walk out with the most amount of impact that they possibly can for your community? Who do you trust that when that door is closed isn't going to back down? That's what this election is about. It is about bold, unapologetic advocacy, because for too long in our community, we've lowered our standards, and we've also lowered our expectations for our leaders. And we deserve better, we can do better, and I'm asking for your vote. I'm Quentin Anthony Anderson. I don't know what my number is on the ballot, but I hope that you'll vote for me because I'm the first one there.
Well, I just appreciate y'all's time. That's stuff you cannot get back, and I do appreciate y'all's time, and I would ask for your vote, your support. And, I have skin in the game. And I say that not because I've been a legislator. I've just only been there for 5 years, so I'm not the old politician. Maybe older, but not the old politician. But, skin in the game because I have children. I have I have folks looking up to me, and I can't disappoint them, and I won't disappoint them. I'm gonna continue to work. I won't get outworked, and then I won't get out. I will knock on doors. I won't get out and knock doors. I won't get out hold signs. I am a guy that lost by 6 votes at 25. I have PTSD. Man. Like somebody told me, and I said, Larry, you should have had a picture on your billboard or your sign. I said, well, my name's Larry. I have an old man name. I wanted to, people think I was old. So everybody was like, oh, you're too young. So I didn't do it. But it's like, I saw your picture, I would have voted for you. 6 people? So now I got pictures. I got pictures. Now I knock on doors until it gets dark. I almost didn't come here because I wanted to knock on doors. I want to meet as many people in the district as I can. Really for the people, not the politics. I have folks looking and depending on me. And I'm not going to let them down. And it's not just my kids, it's all our kids. And I love what I do. I'm going to continue to serve. The proof is in the pudding. These are legislation that I've authored to help people that look like us, that look like them, that's going across party lines. Mental health doesn't have a color. Mental health doesn't have a party. Mental health affects people. And I'm going to advocate for people, and I'm going to continue to advocate for people. So I ask for your vote, your support, and your prayers. And thank you.
I also remind the audience that we're almost in the voting season. This Saturday, it's February 1st. Early voting starts this Saturday. It's going to run from February 1st to the next Saturday, February 8th. Every day except for Sunday. I tell you all the time, especially my mother, you don't know what's going to go on over